Welcome to Chats and Facts, the Qrivia cast. My name is Harley, and I didn't think of a clever intro for myself, and neither did I think of a clever intro for Emily. Hi, Emily.
Hi.
What are we doing here today?
We're here to talk about the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes.
So tell me the tale of the songbirds and snakes.
Hey, you could be in the covey.
Yeah, I haven't seen this movie. I'm sorry. I'm going to be playing the Elliot Page in an inception of this.
Yeah, so I'm here because I'm a massive Hunger Games fan, and I want to froth over this movie some more, and I've dragged you into my shenanigans.
I did end up watching Hunger Games 1.
Yeah, I just put that on, and Harley and our dad were dragged into it. Although Dad got into it because it was like late at night. I was like, I can turn this off. I can finish watching it. He was like, no. We've got half an hour. Let it play.
Let them fight.
And it was also a lot of me shouting, "This is a kid's book," and Scholastic published this.
You can get away with a lot in YA.
Yeah, and it was a lot of me pointing out the ways that the Hunger Games book to screen adaptation had been toned down. So, for example, one of my favourite terrible things is at the end where the mutts are pursuing them up onto the cornucopia and the mutts are supposed to have the faces of the deceased tributes.
Jesus Christ, Collins.
Yes, and once again, I scream, "This is a kid's book."
This battle is so royale.
Yeah, and this kid's book got a prequel in 2020, which I have a very vivid memory of buying it during the pandemic. And then I didn't read it for 3 years because I'm living up to all the hype of book talk about buying books and then not reading them. But so I knew this was coming out. I knew I would want to see it, or like immediately. So I got into it and wow, I did not have to worry about reading that book. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Really shouldn't, there was no surprise in that given that I love the other books. But it is entirely engrossing. And it's got a bit of an Infinity War perspective.
Oh.
So we have the villain of the original 3 books.
Coriolanus Snow?
Yes, which is in fact, I was like, did we find out that his name is Coriolanus in the original? But we do. I was reminded of that when I went through and watched the other films.
I love that Susan Collins double dips in that everyone has wacky hairstyles and makeup, but also everyone just has wacky names.
Well, I mean, that is part of her point about the capital and their excesses, and really contrasting
just
to
gaudy, awful fashion.
Yeah,
because they have dollars, not cents.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's fabulous. You get to see how, so Infinity War, as Thanos is for Infinity War, Coriolanus Snow is the protagonist.
But that means he's the hero and the movie endorses his actions.
No, that's not how that works.
Wow, all my favourite video essays got that basic fact wrong. That's sad.
Oh, yeah, there was a person I used to know who I used to go to a sports club with, and they were working on a film major, and they didn't have that. So, yeah. Harley is now solemnly playing Somebody I Used to Know on the guitar. Welcome to Triple J.
Are we government funded?
Not yet, we're not.
Oh.
Yeah, so the book is entirely engrossing and I polished it off 3 days while working.
Damn.
I really wanted to take time off and it was amazing. So you are introduced to a young Coriolanus Snow, who is...
Or as his teenage friends call him, Corey.
Well, actually, Corio. Yeah, that's an actual part of the book. Ha, you made a joke, but you were correct.
No.
And it's a really interesting insight because, it was established in the first trilogy that, there were the Dark Days, there was the original clash between the capital and the districts, and that's how we got the Hunger Games in the first place. And it's so interesting from a world building aspect because you're going over so much of how did the games get from, being this idea to being the spectacle we see them from the 74th, where there's betting, there's, interviews. It's a real
Game show.
And, pageantry.
Hi, I'm Stanley Tucci, and tell me why you should win the Hunger Games.
Side note is just the fact that the cast for the trilogy and Songbirds and Snakes.
It's kind of stacked.
It's absolutely snacked. Okay, so I've gotten distracted because I was about to get onto the point that Viola Davis just chews scenery.
Oh, no. Apparently Donald Sutherland was insisting on playing President Snow.
That's amazing. And he does it so well. He brings a real gravitas to the role, which suits so well.
3-step guide to gravitas. A big beard, deep voice, be in the same room as the person you're intimidating, but never look directly at them because they don't deserve your full attention, Seneca Crane. Now, Seneca Crane, as I'm attending to my... Why did I give him a weird accent?
Yep, I have questions.
As I'm tending to my roses, let me remind you that as I snip these roses, it's a metaphor for me snipping you if you screw this up.
And so in the first film, he's used very lightly, which suits perfectly because he's the menacing of what is to come. So the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, we start out, it's, I think 13 years after the Dark Days. We have Qrivia and Tigress, his cousin, and they're dealing with, the downfall of their family. They're both orphans. They have their grandmam to look after them. But
Grandmam, thank you, grandmam.
Yes, indeedy. Their building is falling into disrepair and taxes are about to be raised on their apartment. Coriolanus is hoping to get a scholarship to go to university and hopefully we'll be able to put everything together. However, he's up against the dean of the academy that he currently attends. Just doesn't like him. That'll be explained later on. And it comes to pass that the dean and Coriolanus' father were best friends and they spitballed the idea for the games while at university. And the dean, Casca Highbottom, thinks they're a reprehensible idea, but Coriolanus' father wanted the credit. And that is one of the things that I'll comment on with the film that did a great job. They leaned into it a little bit more of the dean's outright disdain for the games. And, the pity he feels for the tributes. So in the film, he gives money to Lucy Gray when she's going back to District 12.
Yep.
And, wow, you survived the games, but you also survived Snow. And then Snow's like, but what if I got sent to District 12? So that was a really nice change.
Yeah.
But this film, the pacing.
The 3 hours of it?
It's really not a 3-hour film.
But it could be 3 films?
It could be 2 films, very healthily. You're not too far off, so 157 minutes, so, 2 hours 40. So the book is, and they transpose this to the movie as well, it's 3 segments. So you've got the mentoring, the actual games, and you've got the Peacekeeper. So
The aftermath.
Yeah. And they're very substantial. There is some commentary with the book that, the last couple of chapters where the relationship between Lucy Gray and Snow degrades, it happens very rapidly.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, some of those people who are a little bit in denial about season 8 of Game of Thrones and they're like, no, they did enough to say that Dany would go crazy. It was all there. You can make that argument for the breakdown of their relationship, but it actually holds true instead of sounding like someone who's in denial about the travesty of season 8 of Game of Thrones. And I really like it that it ties into one of our What's the Diffs that we've done recently.
What's the diff?
Yeah, so...
How many gargoyles are in this?
None. Actually, no, I'm not willing to stand by that statement. However, third act, Snow is bitten by a snake that has been set as a trap from Lucy Gray. And so he shouts, "Is this poisonous?" But
Actually,
what should he have said?
is this venomous?
Yeah, which is very funny because, of course, in the trilogy, Snow uses poison as his main weapon, and we get to see that in the book, and it does transpose to the movie as well. We get to see him implement poison for the first time. So I think it's just so ironic that the guy whose, killer trait is poison doesn't know the difference between poisonous and venomous.
It's an origin story. You had to learn it somewhere.
Yeah.
I did think the extended 6-minute sequence where he did reprise and then key change reprise of Alice Cooper's Poison was a bit much. Like, it sort of took me out of the movie that I didn't see.
A little bit OTT.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair.
You can stand to cut some dance sequences out of movies.
But yeah, even with that 6-minute whole shebang, there's so much to fit in this film. So the book, and I think it has a slightly larger type font being a scholastic book, but it comes in at over 500 pages.
Holy moly, that's some Goblet of Fire, Order of the Phoenix length.
Yeah.
That's like a mini Sando.
And so the film does a great job of being able to cope with that most of the time, but there are definitely things that are lost. And I mean, I think that happened a little bit with the trilogy as well, but there's so much nuance and, with Suzanne Collins's writing.
Yeah.
A little bit of that is lost, and because I'm such a fan of the books, I'm a little bit sad for that.
Yeah.
I genuinely think anyone who hadn't read the books would look at that and, because they're not.
They don't know what's missing.
Yeah, I think they've transposed it really well because, that's another half of the audience, right?
Yeah.
Is the people who haven't read the book.
I remember a J-Law.
Yeah.
So where would you, if you were going to be like, this is 2 movies, where would you cut it? Where would you place the separation?
I was thinking about that, and it's too much in either direction to go 1/3, 2/3 or 2/3, 1/3. So I think you need to get a clean strike down the middle of the games, and there's a lot of events that happen in the games that you could use. So, for example, Sir Janus Plinth, formerly of District 2, sneaks into the arena after the death of a former acquaintance and his tribute. And then Snow is sent in to retrieve him. I think, there could be a cliffhangerish type thing around there.
Yeah.
You could also have it, with the snakes being released into the arena. There's a lot of opportunities there. And actually for me, I think because Jessup and Lucy Gray, the 2 District 12 tributes, go in and they have an alliance. And unfortunately that breaks down at the point of Jessup has been bitten. This is it's a very minor point of difference, but it was by a bat in the carriage to the Capitol in the film, whereas in the books it's a rat when they're being held in the zoo, because it happens over a much more extended period of time. So they have an alliance, and then unfortunately Jessup gets to the end stages of having rabies.
Oof.
Yep.
Oof, oof, oof. I've seen that episode of House. Oof, 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 oof.
Yeah. And so I think at the point that Lucy Gray no longer has essentially her protector in the games and is now relying on what she has and Snow on the outside, now I have to go it alone. I think that is a good point to perhaps cleave it in half.
Oh, just as she's watching over the horizon. You can go your own way, Lucy Gray.
Yeah. She can try, but will she make it? And then the second that you start the next film, you've still got the momentum of the games to be able to, we've not taken the foot off the pedal at all.
No, and that's a very good way to start a movie.
And so I think that's where I would split it up if you were dead set on sort of
making 2 movies out of it.
Yeah, and if you wanted to include a little bit more of the background, because there's so much that Suzanne Collins really put in there. So, for example, Lucy Gray, her name comes from a Wordsworth poem, and it's about the titular character, Lucy Gray, being lost in a snowstorm. And it's very open-ended as to did she survive or was she lost? And so that's actually Lucy Gray's ending in the book and the film. Snow shoots randomly. And so we're unaware of whether or not Lucy Gray has perished or if she's made it out.
So her fate isn't black or white.
No, it's grey. Thank you for teeing that one up for me. And particularly in the book, and maybe not as much in the film, Snow becomes an unreliable narrator because he is, one of our favourite tropes.
What do you mean his history is revisionist?
Well, he participates in revisionist history, but he is also incredibly stressed. He has found the guns that will clear him. He has a path back to honour and a higher place in society. He's unaware at this point of how high that will go. It will exceed his expectations. And so he's incredibly stressed because he doesn't know if the snake that has bit him is venomous. So because of the stress and the situation he's in, there's things that lend to him becoming an unreliable narrator. But truly, we do not know what happened to Lucy Gray as per the poem, which has started off a lot of really interesting theories. One that's pretty concrete was a lot of people leapt to Lucy Gray being related to Katniss Everdeen. So
Bit convenient, isn't it?
Bit convenient, and we have information that, would say something a little bit different. So the reason why that has been commonly jumped to is because they both know the Hanging Tree song. Were explained that Lucy Gray actually wrote the Hanging Tree.
Oh.
There's just something beautifully haunting about a lot of the things in hindsight about the actual trilogy for Snow's experiences of Katniss's rise. Because he's heard this song. He's heard the Hanging Tree before. It was written by Lucy Gray, his paramour in District 12.
How do you know that song?
Yeah. So there's these beautiful things that if you go back and watch, especially the Mockingjay movies now, with this light, you get an insight into just how anguished and tortured Snow would be and just how freaked out. So Lucy Gray has a cousin, Maud Ivory.
Yes.
And a really important fact, Chekhov's comment in this particular regard is that Maud Ivory can remember any song once she hears it once.
Interesting. That sounds like something that'll never come up again. Wait a minute. There's an important narrative song.
Yes. And so Katniss in the trilogy says that it was passed down through her father's side of the family, which is another reason why people believe that there is a link here.
Yep.
And then further to that, Maud Ivory's casting in the film looks very similar to her sister Primrose in the original trilogy. So from the book, the movie puts a little bit more weight to it as well. It's fairly concrete that the connection there is that Maud Ivory is a direct ancestor to Katniss. Another fun little thing is that the last thing that Lucy Gray says to Snow before, the whole...
Disappearing.
Yeah, is that she's going out to go get some Katniss because it's a swamp root. In the book, there's this really beautiful thing is that they had looked at it 2 weeks ago and it wasn't ripe yet. And
it's not Katniss's time.
Well, not yet. And so when she's like, "Oh, I'll go, you've got the fire going. I'll go get some Katniss." And he's like, "Oh, I thought it wasn't ripe." And she just coyly says, 2 weeks can change a lot. And that's a lot closer to the time frame of her being in the capital in the book, whereas the film really condenses that. The games and her being in the capital happen over 5 days.
You got to get your shit in.
Yeah. So that was a really nice wink, wink, nudge, nudge that, didn't quite make it to the movie. So yeah, Lucy Gray, District 12. I'm going to go get some Katniss. 64 years later.
Who would win? Lucy Gray getting some Katniss or Samuel L. Jackson finding a planet for the Greenie boys to live on?
Put them together and you've got a meal and a planet.
Oh my goodness. I personally think that Lucy Gray survived.
I love that as well. I think there's a real triumph in if that she was to survive, but it's definitely that you're supposed to bring to it what you interpret.
Yeah, well, nobody, no crime.
Nobody, no crime, Sean.
Mm-hmm. And I love in fiction that's like, if they don't show a body, they definitely survived. If they do show a body, 50-50 they survive because they played some elaborate trick.
Oh, if it's Riverdale, they're definitely not dead.
No, not even if you get attacked by a bear to death.
Nope.
Or like how Monk gets shot in like season 3, episode 12 of 24. You're like, oh my God, they shot Monk.
The Monk movie just came out, by the way. Which,
we do have to watch that.
Yeah.
Like 2 or 3 Psych movies behind.
Yes, that as well. But like just a quick veer into no series has finished as well as I think Monk did. The 2-part finale on that was beautiful.
I'm going to say it was a pretty good one. I think, especially because it also had a more shaky final season. But I think Burn Notice managed to really put the missile in the Death Star hole.
The fact that was able to come out and land as strongly as it did was really, really impressive.
I love Burn Notice dearly, but the first half a dozen episodes in season 7 were a coin toss on the old quality scale.
Yeah, it went back and forth a little bit. The average was good, though.
Oh, dry your eyes, Fiona. This is a code word from 25 years ago. Hey, Villain of the Week, I'm just going to take a dive real quick. Michael with 10 machine guns.
10 machine guns, and he's got one in his mouth like Zorro from One Piece. But so, of course, with this is that a lot of people are talking about, Lucy Gray's fate.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking about, her relation potentially to Katniss.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have come out saying that, her plan was to escape and head away from the districts. So a lot of people say that, maybe she's got some connection to District 13, which we find out at the end of book 2 in the trilogy, is that, they're alive and well.
Mm-hmm.
They, have a thing going on with the capital to like truce and ceasefire. So some people theorize that she made it there. Some people go as far to say she's related to President Coin of District 13, and that's particularly interesting because Coin becomes a late-stage villain in Mockingjay.
Better than being a late-stage capitalist.
Yes. I'm sure there's a joke there about, Snow, president of the Capitol, and late-stage capitalist.
Wow, everyone else is dead. It's time for President Snow to reign.
Well, but that's basically the thing, is that Coin envisages taking over after defeating President Snow.
Now that Snow's been sufficiently weakened, it's time for a coup.
Yeah, but to do that, she employs a double bombing technique that takes out Katniss's sister. The whole reason she got into the games overall. So, the final thing that, happens.
What is the cost of revolution?
Yeah, so Katniss is supposed to shoot President Snow, but she takes out Coin instead, and Snow is trampled. Or chokes on his own blood. It's left somewhat ambiguous, but he dies in the stampede that, follows. Katniss is, pardoned because of insanity. She's been through a lot.
Look, you've had a week. This one's on us.
But so I don't necessarily know, for me, that, Lucy Gray being connected to 13 at all. I think it's, good to theorise, but for me, I don't know that there's anything that holds stock there.
Yeah.
But I came up with a really out-of-pocket otherworld idea.
Call your shot.
So,
give your film theory.
And I'll put a little background here. So Lucy Gray won the 10th Hunger Games.
Mm-hmm.
The winner of the 11th was Mags from District 4.
Mm-hmm.
Where we get to know Mags in Catching Fire because of the Quarter Quell.
Mm-hmm.
The Quarter Quell ideas were supposed to have, they were apparently written at the inception of the games. But Songbirds and Snakes has just shown us that a lot of what the games were came along as they were being developed.
What do you mean they made it up as they went?
10 to 15 years in. So, that's, maybe a little bit of a revisionist history from the Capitol. But either way, even if they were pre-existing, we need to deal with Katniss Everdeen in a very, oh no, how did that happen? And so conveniently it's, the tributes have to be reaped from existing victors. And because she is the only living female victor for 12.
That sucks because it's like the odds of winning one Hunger Games, then you're like, oh, hey, can you go double or nothing? The odds of surviving 2 Hunger Games.
Yeah, and so one of the other tributes, Johanna Mason, actually points that out. And she's like, the deal was I won, you let me live in peace.
Mm-hmm.
But it is
we let you live in pieces.
Yeah.
Sorry, it was right there.
But the entire thing is orchestrated to get Katniss back in the arena and to kill her.
It's very wrestling writing.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like Katniss Everdeen, who's been the thorn of the big bad Vince McMahon type for 6 months now. We're not going to fire you. No, no, no. You're going to have to go one-on-one with The Undertaker. And if you beat him, then you have to go one-on-one with The Undertaker's brother. And then if you beat him, then fine, you can have a championship match, but it's going to be no disqualification.
Whoa.
Like, it's just, you could just kill the person.
Well, but, there's an uprising that, is about to occur and stuff like that. So they need to go, oh no, that was bad luck. That's essentially what they're trying to make it out of as.
Yeah.
But what I'm driving at here is, so for the Quarter Quell, the 75th Hunger Games, Mags, the winner of the 11th, she volunteers as tribute to protect a younger victor, Annie Crester, which is all very beautiful and it's very much framed. She knew she would die. Yeah. She was in on protecting Katniss and getting her out of the arena. But, probably very much the realization that she will perish.
Yeah.
So my otherworld reality is that we know Mags, the victor of the 11th Hunger Games, survived to the 75th. Imagine Snow's reaction if, so it's Reaping Day, the Quarter Quell has been announced.
Sir, don't worry, we're going to get Katniss Everdeen.
And so... my God, that's Lucy Gray's entrance music. And so imagine the otherworld reality where Lucy Gray volunteers in place of Katniss for the Quarter Quell. Like, what that would do to Snow. And, the Capitol would immediately start gunning for Katniss. But
sometimes you just have to tell people you're okay, but you're not, because they wouldn't understand. How are these people from 60 years ago ruining my day again?
Yeah, so it was 64... years prior, and so she was 16 at the time, so Lucy Gray would be 80, and so she may have the same approach as Mags as, I've lived a good time.
I made it 82 in this world.
Yeah, I'm going to... So Snow is 82 at
I was
Catching
going
Fire.
to ask, because there's a lot of time between these two movies.
Yeah, so he's 18 in the Ballad. So 64 and then 65 years later. So 80, 81, Lucy Gray may be in the same area as Mags and that, she's lived a good life. So there's another reality where, Katniss can still become the Mockingjay because of her actions in the first Hunger Games, but just absolutely mess Snow up. Lucy Gray, wearing her mother's rainbow covey dress, comes out and goes, I volunteer as tribute, because she is the only other she's the only other female victor from 12.
I actually, not having watched those movies, so I don't know how it actually plays out, but I like that version in a vacuum better, because then it leaves Katniss to be like, hey, this is bullshit! Revolution! And Snow's just like... How?
But for me, it was just something interesting to think about, because you naturally take that lens of, with everything we know now from Ballad and Snow's experiences of, Katniss's time in the games. Yeah. He's like, Lucy Gray is here to haunt me. And then I just think a physical manifestation of that haunting would be fabulous. So that's my out-of-pocket other reality.
I like it.
I really love getting immersed in this world and just thinking about it. And I really hope that we might get some more prequels, maybe.
Oh, there's 64 goddamn years. You're going to tell me nothing interesting happened there?
Well, it's not just that there's So there was 75 games all up. A lot of people are asking. They want Hamish's.
Hamish's game.
Yeah, so he was the second quarter quell.
Oh, and the name's right there, the Hamish games.
Yeah, right there. So
Yeah.
we already know a little bit about Hamish's because it was the second quarter quell.
Yeah.
And so it was basically double the amount of tributes. So 4 from each district.
Oof.
And, his intestines gets ripped out at the last moment. And, it's an Harley.
Yep.
A lot of people want to read about that.
Yeah, that tracks. Do you have a preferred machete order for viewing the movies now? Like, would you say someone new to the franchise, if they wanted to, would watch Hunger Games, Hunger Games 2, More Hunger, More Games, then Ballads, then Mockingjay Part 1, then Mockingjay Part 2? Like, do you have a preferred machete order?
I think it really depends what you're in it for.
Yeah.
So the political discussion and the building of the games, I think watching it in world chronological order has a lot of value because, that is one of the focal points of the books and the movies is, they talk about propaganda, they talk about, government control and everything like that. Seeing, and again, it's part of Snow being the protagonist of Ballads, you see their quote-unquote logic behind the games.
I do like the idea that you sort of fade out on Songbirds and Ballad Songbirds and Snakes, and then a white interstitial just pops up 3,000 weeks later.
With the
How dare
SpongeBob
you only
voiceover.
give me bread? This other guy went hunting with me. Oh, and it's the reaping. What a day to be of me.
Yeah, so that's one thing they don't, I think it's the Tesserae, they're putting the names in multiple times for extra food. That was one thing that was critically missing from the original Hunger Games movie for me because, so they talk about how many times Gale is in the, how many times his name is in there, but they don't talk about the fact that, so Katniss's is in there definitely over 40.
Yeah.
I think it's some multiple of 7. Because you can put your name in more times to get more food.
Yeah,
up to a cap.
for each year older a teenager you are, right? Or something like that.
It's that combined with you could put it in twice to get extra food, or you could put it in 4 times to get extra food. So, there's the really hard-hitting, unmerciful fact that when Prim is reaped, her name is in there once, whereas Katniss's is in there over 40.
Yep.
So that was one thing that was missing from the original Hunger Games movie for me. But that's a small nitpick. But yeah, so I think if you're really looking at the political discourse and how the society got so broken that anyone could have thought that that was a great idea, and the machinations of power that brought it to this, I think in world chronological order
that's
is
fair.
quite good.
Yeah.
I was about to say I don't think there's a wrong way to watch this, but
No.
watching Mockingjay first is definitely the wrong way.
Just to be that guy for a second.
Yep.
So everyone in District 12, they're all hungry.
Yes.
Everyone puts every year, they find one person to pre-designate as tribute, and then everyone just puts their names in as much as possible.
You could do it.
Just to be that guy to try and game the Hunger Games for a second.
The Capitol wouldn't like it because it wouldn't be a spectacle, and also it subverts the power dynamic. So you've watched the first one, the careers. So to specifically train for the Hunger Games is actually outlawed. So even though, and so in the movies it's 1 and 2, in the books 4 is also a career district. They train children.
They
Specifically
train Jack Quaid in the art of murder.
Exactly. To throw spears at poor little Rulu.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's outlawed, but because it adds the spectacle, the Capitol looks the other way.
Yeah.
So they're trained until they're 18 and then they volunteer. Interestingly, though, Finnick Adair, who plays a role in the Revolution, despite coming from a career district, he participated in the games at 14.
Oh.
So that's just a little bit of an anomaly. Maybe we'll get a book about it.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is you do my plan, But the person who pre-designates that you don't tell a capital that they're going to volunteer as tribute, you just grab that from the theatre kids. So they give them a show.
Oh my God. Poor theatre kids. Well, I think the thing is that
Something no one said in history before. Poor theatre kids.
But so what I'm driving at is that volunteering happens in the career districts.
Yeah.
Because, there'll be someone designated to do that. However, volunteering never happens elsewhere.
Because why would you?
Exactly. So there are probably a few other instances that were recorded. Katniss did it for her sister and Mags did it for Annie Crester. And so those are the only two prominent examples. And one was, I want to protect my sister, and one was, I have lived a good life. I'm doing this to protect you.
Look, I'm doing this to protect you, but also a huge side benefit is sticking it to the man.
Oh, yeah.
And so I got to go stick some men.
Mags was right at it till the end.
Yeah.
So all in all, I'm really enjoying being back in the world of the Hunger Games. And, I hope Suzanne Collins writes us some more.
Yeah. Do it, Collins. Catch that Sanderson disease and just spew words on the pages that are goodly.
I don't know that I want to go that far, but...
Yeah, that's fair. Well, to wrap it up, what's your rating for the Ballads of Songbirds and Snakes?
For me, it's 9 out of 10. I think, the thing that brings it back for me is like...
Getting that golden key invite.
Yeah. Australian University reference. There's some things in there that I would have changed with the knowledge that I have of the books.
Yeah.
Like I said, the fact that they made Casca Highbottom more overtly against the games and making actions, I liked that change. There was a couple other things that I would have liked to see included just to make it more full-bodied, even without having to split it into two films. Yeah. But
I'm hearing that as an adaptation from a book to screen, it did a pretty good job, which is not always common.
You're always... I remember when we used to go see the Harry Potter movies and we would go to McDonald's afterwards because we had to have travelled to the next town over. Mm-hmm. So why not get Macca's while we're there to be at the cinema? And so we would have the conversations about, what was different from the...
books.
Yeah, and that was a really fun deconstruction. But one thing that I want to leave you with as well is, so Lucy Gray's musical troupe is the Covey. Mm-hmm. They're roaming. They're not really of any district, although when the districts were more formally established, the Covey was stuck into District 12.
Yeah.
So Covey is actually a collective noun term for a lot of songbirds.
It all comes together.
Yeah, so it is also used as a collective noun for groups of people in specific circumstances, but it is also used for, a couple different instances of birds, and I thought that was really lovely because there's, so Lucy Gray is our songbird and Coriolanus Snow is our snake, and there's a lot of things that go through.
I just got it.
Oh my God, this late in the game. Probably should have said that more up front. Yeah. But so just, I was working on a different thing for Qrivia, and just coming across that, I think that was really beautiful, that, the Covey for our little group of songbirds.
Lovely.
Yeah.
I've been Harley.
I've been Emily, and thank you for listening to Chats and Facts on this Qrivia cast.
One last question, though, for you.
Yes, indeed.
What job was Snow forced into after the whole Hunger Games debacle in the middle of the movie?
Oh, no. I know I'm being baited, but it's a peacekeeper.
Oh, wait, I thought it was Peacemaker.
You keep making that association, so I can see why it's in your brain, but you definitely made that joke when Peacekeepers came up in the original Hunger Games Qrivia. Peacemaker is probably on our docket sometime soon. But everyone can probably keep an eye out for the Qrivias on the rest of the Hunger Games franchise.
Yep. The Hunger Games will continue until morale improves.
Oh, well, there's a whole movie about that. There's 3 other movies. Mockingjay definitely followed the Harry Potter Deathly Hallows 1-2 split. There's 3 movies up our sleeve covering 2 books.
Very nice. And in our final segment, since you have all the relevant degrees, Emily, can you go through this entire Kathleen Folbig controversy right now?
Oh my God.
No, I'm not going to do that to you. Thanks for listening.
I mean, my 4 majors do qualify me, but let me just play in the wonderful land of Hunger Games instead. That's more cut and dried.
It do be like that. They don't say that, do, but it Scooby Dooby Doo.